Before we begin tonight's story, I want you to do some small things like close the door of your room, lock it if you can, and turn off every single light around you. Let your room sink into darkness. No glow, no distraction, only silence. Now lie down on your bed or sit in a place where no one can disturb you. Put on your headphones, not just for better sound, but to make sure nothing breaks the connection between you and what you're about to hear. Take a deep breath and exhale slowly. Feel the darkness around you, because what's coming next is not just another story, it's an experience that will crawl under your skin. Every sound you hear will make your heart beat a little faster. Every whisper will make you wonder if it came from the story or from somewhere inside your room. Don't look behind you now. Don't check your phone. Don't even blink too much. Just stay still and listen carefully, because tonight's story isn't like the others. It's a door that opens into a world where shadows have voices and silence has a face. You'll feel things move in the dark. You'll hear footsteps where there should be none. And maybe, just maybe, you'll feel someone breathing near you even though you're alone. So if you're ready, keep your eyes open, your mind calm, and your heart strong. Because once the story starts, there's no way back. This isn't just horror. This is a full dark adventure that will follow you even after the video ends. Now take one last deep breath, because the story begins right now. The wind howled like a pack of wolves outside the crumbling walls of the old huge house, its eerie cries slipping through the cracked windows and making the dusty curtains shiver. Aisha, a 22-year-old college student with curious brown eyes and a habit of chewing her nails when nervous, stood frozen at the edge of the creaky porch. Her backpack, stuffed with books and a flashlight, weighed heavy on her shoulders. She wasn't supposed to be here. Nobody was. The house, known as Blackwood Manor, had been abandoned for decades, its towering silhouette a grim legend in the small town of Gulshan. People whispered about it, tales of disappearing travelers, strange lights flickering in the windows, and doors that moved without a touch. Aisha, always drawn to mysteries, had heard these stories since she was a kid, sitting on her grandmother's lap, listening to warnings about the house that ate souls. But she wasn't a kid anymore, and her curiosity had grown stronger than her fear. Tonight, she made a bet with her friends at college, spend 1 hour inside Blackwood Manor and bring back proof, like a photo of the grand staircase or a trinket from the dusty rooms. It sounded simple in the daylight, but now, standing in the shadow of the massive house, her heart pounded like a drum. The air felt thick, heavy with something she couldn't name, like the house was watching her, waiting. She adjusted her glasses, her breath fogging in the chilly October night, and took a step forward. The porch groaned under her sneakers, each step echoing like a warning. The front door, huge and carved with strange symbols that looked like twisted faces, loomed ahead. It was black as coal with a rusty iron knocker shaped like a claw. Aisha reached for it, her fingers trembling, but before she could touch it, a low creak sliced through the silence. Her heart stopped. The door was moving. Slowly, inch by inch, it opened on its own, revealing a dark hallway that seemed to swallow the moonlight. No one was there. No wind pushed it, just the door creaking louder like a voice inviting her in. Aisha's breath caught in her throat. She wanted to run, to forget the bet and sprint back to her dorm, but her feet wouldn't move. Something pulled her, not physically, but like a whisper in her mind, urging her to step inside. She clutched her flashlight, its beam shaking as she pointed it into the darkness. The hallway was long, lined with peeling wallpaper that looked like it was bleeding in the dim light. Old portraits hung crookedly, their painted eyes seeming to follow her every move. Dust floated in the air, sparkling in her flashlight's glow, and the smell of mold and something sour filled her nose. Aisha took a shaky step inside, her sneakers sinking into a thick rug that felt damp underfoot. The door behind her didn't close, but it stayed open, like a trap waiting to snap shut. She swallowed hard, her mouth dry, and called out, "Hello, is anyone here?" Her voice echoed, bouncing off the walls, but no answer came. Only silence, heavy and suffocating. Then from somewhere deep in the house, a faint sound, a soft thump like a heartbeat. Aisha froze, her flashlight beam darting around. The thump came again, louder, closer, and with it, a whisper so faint she wasn't sure if she imagined it. "Aisha," it said, her name slithering through the air like a snake. Her blood ran cold. How did it know her name? She hadn't told anyone she was coming here, not even her friends knew her plan until this morning. Her heart raced, and she gripped her flashlight tighter, its light flickering for a moment. She wanted to turn back, but the thump grew louder, now joined by a scraping sound, like nails dragging across wood. It was coming from upstairs. Aisha's eyes flicked to the grand staircase at the end of the hallway, its steps covered in dust, untouched for years, except for one set of footprints, fresh and clear, leading up into the darkness. They weren't hers. She hadn't gone near the stairs yet. Her stomach twisted and she backed up, her sneakers squeaking on the floor. The whisper came again, clearer now. "Aisha, come." It wasn't human, not fully, like a voice stretched thin, echoing from every corner of the house. She swung her flashlight around, the beam catching a mirror on the wall. For a split second, she saw her reflection, or thought she did. The face in the mirror wasn't hers. It was pale, with hollow eyes and a twisted smile staring back at her. Aisha gasped, stumbling back, and the flashlight slipped from her hand, clattering to the floor. The light went out, plunging her into darkness. Her hands fumbled for it, her breath coming in short, panicked gasps. The thumping stopped, replaced by a new sound, footsteps, slow and deliberate, coming down the stairs. They were heavy, uneven, like something dragging itself closer. Aisha's fingers found the flashlight and she clicked it on, praying it would work. The beam flickered to life, weak but enough to show the staircase. Nothing was there. The footprints were gone, as if they'd never existed. Her heart pounded so loud she could hear it in her ears. The footsteps had stopped, but the air felt heavier now, pressing against her chest. She turned to the door, ready to run, but it was no longer open. It was closed, sealed tight, the claw-shaped knocker gleaming in the faint moonlight from a window. Aisha's knees shook as she reached for the handle, but it wouldn't budge. She was trapped. The whisper came again, closer this time, right behind her ear. "You shouldn't have come." Her scream caught in her throat as something cold brushed against her neck like fingers made of ice. She spun around, flashlight raised, but no one was there. The hallway stretched endlessly before her, the portraits now tilted at unnatural angles, their eyes glowing faintly in the dark. The thumping started again, faster, like a drumbeat calling her deeper into the house. Aisha's mind raced. She could stay by the door, hoping it would open, or follow the sound, find out what was calling her name. Every instinct screamed to run, but there was nowhere to go. The house had her now, and it wasn't letting go. She took a deep breath, her flashlight shaking in her hand, and stepped toward the staircase, the thumping growing louder with every step. The air grew colder, the walls seeming to pulse, and the whisper returned, wrapping around her like a shadow. "Aisha, you're mine." The whisper echoed in her ears like a chilling promise, sending shivers down her spine as she stood at the foot of the grand staircase, her flashlight beam cutting through the thick darkness like a weak sword in a battle she couldn't win. She spun around again, her breath ragged, but the hallway was empty, just shadows dancing on the walls, mocking her fear. Aisha's mind screamed at her to stop, to find a way out, but her body moved forward, one foot after the other. Climbing the stairs that creaked under her weight like old bones protesting. Each step felt heavier, the air growing colder with every inch she ascended, as if the house was breathing, inhaling her warmth and exhaling frost. The walls up here were different, covered in faded murals of twisted trees and foggy landscapes, and as her light swept over them, she swore the branches in the paintings moved, reaching out like skeletal hands. Her name whispered again, softer this time, coming from the landing above. pulling her like an invisible thread tied around her heart. Aisha reached the top, her legs trembling, and paused, shining her flashlight down a long corridor lined with doors, each one identical, wooden with brass handles that gleamed unnaturally in the dim light. Dust motes swirled around her, and the thumping sound returned, muffled now, coming from behind one of the doors, the third one on the left, she thought, or maybe the fourth. She didn't want to know, but her curiosity, that cursed trait that had brought her here, pushed her forward. The floorboards groaned, and she noticed footprints again, not hers, small and delicate like a child, leading straight to that door. Aisha's pulse quickened. Who could be here? The house was supposed to be empty, forsaken since the tragedy years ago. The Blackwood family massacre, or so the legend said, where the entire household vanished one stormy night, leaving only bloodstains and unanswered questions. She shook her head, trying to clear the fog in her mind, but the whisper came back. Aisha, closer. She approached the door, her hand hovering over the handle, feeling a strange warmth emanating from the metal, like it was alive. Turning it slowly, the door swung open with a sigh, revealing a room that looked frozen in time. A nursery with a crib in the corner rocking gently on its own, and toys scattered across the floor, their eyes staring blankly at her. A doll with porcelain skin and cracked lips sat on a chair, its head tilted as if listening. Aisha stepped inside, the door closing softly behind her, and the thumping grew louder, coming from under the crib. She knelt down, her flashlight revealing nothing but dust bunnies and shadows, but then a small hand, pale and tiny, shot out, grabbing her wrist with icy fingers. She screamed, yanking back, but the grip was strong, unnaturally so, pulling her closer until her face was inches from the darkness under the crib. Eyes gleamed there, red and hungry, and a voice giggled, childlike but wrong. "Play with me, Aisha, forever." She twisted free, scrambling back, her back hitting the wall as the doll on the chair suddenly moved, its head snapping up, mouth opening in a silent scream. The room spun, the toys rattling on the floor, rolling toward her like they were alive. Aisha bolted for the door, but it wouldn't open, the handle slipping in her sweaty palm. The giggle turned into laughter, echoing around her, and the crib rocked faster, banging against the floor. She pounded on the door, tears streaming down her face. "Let me out, please." But the house didn't listen. Instead, the laughter grew, joined by more voices, whispers overlapping, calling her name from every direction. Finally, the door gave way, and she tumbled into the corridor, slamming it shut behind her. Her chest heaved as she leaned against it, but the sounds didn't stop. They seeped through the wood, scratching like nails. Aisha ran down the hall, trying doors at random, but most were locked, their handles cold and unyielding. One opened to a library, shelves towering to the ceiling, books with spines cracked and titles in languages she didn't recognize. She ducked inside, hopping for a hiding spot, but as she scanned the room, a book fell from the shelf, thudding open at her feet. The pages were filled with handwriting, frantic scrawls. "The house knows your secrets, it feeds on your fears." Aisha flipped through, her eyes widening at drawings of the same twisted faces she'd seen on the front door, and entries about the Blackwood family. How the father, a mad inventor, built the house with hidden passages and mechanisms that moved on their own, driven by some dark energy he discovered in the basement. The last entry. "It's awake now, and it wants more." A creak from the corner made her jump. A hidden panel slid open, revealing a narrow staircase descending into blackness. The whispers urged her down. "Aisha, the truth is below," she hesitated. But the door to the library rattled, something banging against it from the outside. No choice, she slipped into the passage, the panel closing behind her, trapping her in tight, musty confines. The stairs spiraled down, her flashlight barely piercing the gloom, and the walls brushed her shoulders, feeling like they were closing in. Cobwebs clung to her hair, and she heard skittering sounds like rats or something worse. Deeper she went, the air growing stale, heavy with the scent of earth and decay. At the bottom, the passage opened into a basement, vast and cluttered with old machinery, gears, levers, and glass tubes filled with swirling mist. In the center, a large mirror stood, cracked but intact, and in its reflection, Aisha saw not herself, but a girl who looked like her, older, with hollow cheeks and desperate eyes, mouthing words she couldn't hear. She approached, transfixed, and touched the glass. It rippled like water, and the girl in the mirror reached out, her hand passing through, grabbing Aisha's arm. "Help me," the reflection whispered, but her grip tightened, pulling Aisha in. She fought, planting her feet, but the pull was strong, the mirror's surface cold and liquid. Visions flashed in her mind, the Blackwood family, screaming as shadows consumed them, the father laughing maniacally as he activated his machine, binding their souls to the house. Aisha realized with horror that the house wasn't just haunted, it was alive, an entity that trapped souls to feed its eternal hunger. She yanked free, falling back, and the mirror shattered, shards flying like daggers. Pain sliced her cheek, blood warm on her skin, but she didn't stop, scrambling away as the machinery whirred to life, gears grinding, lights flickering on ancient bulbs. The whispers turned to shouts, "You can't escape, you're part of us now." Aisha spotted a door across the room, half buried in debris, and ran for it, shoving aside crates that crumbled to dust. The house shook, walls cracking as if angry at her defiance. She burst through the door into a tunnel, damp and echoing, leading who knows where. Her flashlight dimmed, batteries failing, but she pressed on, the shouts fading behind her, replaced by a new sound, dripping water and faint cries ahead. The tunnel sloped up, ending at a grate overlooking the backyard, moonlight filtering through. Freedom. She pushed at the grate, but it was rusted shut. Panic rose as footsteps echoed from behind, slow, dragging, getting closer. She kicked at the grate once, twice, and it gave way, tumbling into the grass. Aisha crawled out, gulping fresh air, the night wind whipping her hair. But as she stood looking back at the house, its windows glowed red like eyes watching her. She ran toward the woods, branches snagging her clothes, but the whispers followed, faint but persistent. "Aisha, come back." Her phone, forgotten in her pocket, buzzed, a text from her friend. "Where are you? The bet's off. That house is cursed." Too late. She glanced back, and in the distance, the huge front door swung open again by itself, inviting her return. But something worse. Shapes moved in the windows, silhouettes of the trapped souls, waving, calling. Aisha kept running, heart pounding, but deep down she knew the house wasn't done with her. It had tasted her fear, and it hungered for more. The woods thickened, paths twisting, and she realized she was lost, the house's influence extending beyond its walls. A branch snapped nearby, not her. She froze, flashlight out now, total darkness enveloping her. The whisper returned right beside her. "You're still mine." A hand touched her shoulder, cold and real, and Aisha screamed into the night, the sound swallowed by the trees as the horror truly began to unfold, pulling her deeper into its web of terror and secrets that refused to stay buried. The ground seemed to shift under her feet, roots twisting like veins, and she stumbled, falling into a clearing where an old well stood, its mouth yawning wide, blackness inside calling her name once more. She peered over the edge, drawn by curiosity again, and saw faces staring up, pale, pleading, the lost souls of Blackwood Manor. One reached up, fingers brushing the rim, and Aisha backed away, but the ground crumbled, dirt giving way, pulling her toward the well. She clawed at the grass, nails breaking, but the pull was relentless, like the house's gravity. Just as she slipped over the edge, her hand caught a root, dangling her above the abyss. The faces below chanted, "Join us, Aisha." Sweat stung her eyes, muscles burning, but she hauled herself up, rolling away from the well. Breathless, she lay there, staring at the stars, but they seemed dim, blocked by an unnatural fog rolling in from the house. She got to her feet, determined to find the road, her dorm, safety. but every path led back, the woods looping like a maze designed by the mad inventor. Hours passed, or minutes. Time blurred here. Her phone died, screen cracking from the fall. Alone, exhausted, Aisha heard music now, faint piano notes drifting from the house, melancholy and inviting. Against her will, her feet turned toward it, the pull stronger. She fought, sitting down, hugging her knees, whispering to herself, "It's not real, wake up." But the music swelled, joined by laughter, children's voices playing. Memories flooded her, not hers, but the house's. Happy days before the darkness, then the father's descent into madness, experimenting with forbidden knowledge, opening doors to other realms. Aisha saw it all in her mind, the family screams as entities poured in, possessing the walls, the doors, the very air. She was connected now, a thread in the tapestry. Shaking her head, she stood, resolve hardening. She'd find a way out, expose the truth, burn the house if she had to. But as she marched forward, the fog thickened, shapes forming, ghostly figures, translucent, reaching for her. One touched her arm and pain shot through, visions of their deaths flashing, choking, falling, trapped forever. She ran again, blind in the mist, until she burst out onto the lawn, the house looming once more. The door was open, light spilling out, warm and deceptive. "No," she muttered, turning away, but a voice, her grandmother's, called from inside, "Aisha, help me." Impossible, her grandmother was dead, gone years ago. Tears fell as she realized the house knew her deepest pains, using them as weapons. She covered her ears, but the calls persisted. Friends, family, all pleading. The ground trembled, cracks forming, and from them, hands emerged, grabbing her ankles. She kicked free, sprinting to the porch, but not to enter, to find her backpack left there. No, it was gone. Despair hit, but then a glint, her keys with a small knife. She grabbed them, slashing at the air as shadows closed in. The house roared, wind whipping, doors slamming everywhere. Aisha dove off the porch, rolling down the hill away from the manor. Thorns tore her skin, but she didn't stop, crawling until the sounds faded. Dawn broke, faint light piercing the trees, and she found the road, collapsing as a car approached. The driver, an old man, stopped, eyes wide. "You came from Blackwood. No one survives that place." Aisha nodded, whispering, "It let me go, but why?" He helped her in, driving away, but in the rear view she saw the house door closing slowly, as if waving goodbye. Safe, maybe. But that night in her dorm, as she tried to sleep, a creak, her door opening by itself. The whisper returned, soft and triumphant, "Because you'll bring more." The whisper slithered into Aisha's dreams that night, twisting her sleep into a nightmare where the old huge house loomed larger than ever, its door creaking open like a hungry mouth, and shadowy figures poured out, their hands reaching for her friends, her family, everyone she knew, pulling them into the darkness while she watched, helpless and screaming. She woke up gasping, sweat soaking her sheets in the dim light of her dorm room, her heart racing as if she'd never left the manor. The clock on her nightstand blinked 3:33 a.m., the witching hour they called it, and outside her window the wind howled just like it had at Blackwood Manor, rattling the glass panes. Aisha sat up, rubbing her eyes, telling herself it was over, that she'd escaped, that the old man who drove her home was right. No one survives, but she had somehow. But deep down she knew better. The house had marked her, planted something inside her soul, a seed of darkness that was already sprouting. Her cheek throbbed where the mirror shard had cut her, and when she touched it, her fingers came away sticky with blood, fresh blood, as if the wound had reopened on its own. She stumbled to the bathroom, flicking on the light, and stared at her reflection in the mirror. For a moment, just a flicker, her eyes weren't brown anymore. They were black, bottomless, like the well in the woods. She blinked and it was gone, but the fear remained, coiling in her gut. Shaking it off, she splashed water on her face, the cold shocking her awake, and decided she couldn't stay silent. She had to warn her friends about the bet, tell them the house was real, dangerous, alive. Grabbing her phone, she texted the group chat, "Guys, don't go near Blackwood Manor, it's not a joke. Something happened last night. But as she hit send, the phone glitched, the screen flickering. And the message changed before her eyes. Come visit Blackwood Manor. It's amazing. Bring everyone. Horror washed over her. No, that wasn't what she wrote. She tried to delete it, but her fingers wouldn't move right, typing instead, meet me there tomorrow night, adventure awaits. Aisha dropped the phone like it was burning, watching as replies flooded in. Sounds fun. I'm in. What time? Her friends, oblivious, excited. The house was using her, turning her into a lure, just like the whisper promised. She smashed the phone against the wall, shards scattering, but the damage was done. Panic rising, she paced the room, her mind racing back to the visions in the basement. The Blackwood father, Elias Blackwood, a reclusive genius obsessed with immortality, who discovered an ancient artifact in the house's foundations, a stone etched with runes that bound spirits to the living world. He'd experimented, merging souls with the structure, creating a sentient entity that craved more life force to sustain itself. The family was the first victims, their essences trapped, luring others over the years, travelers, curious kids, now her. Aisha realized she wasn't free. A piece of the house lingered in her, whispering suggestions, manipulating her actions. She needed help, someone who knew about the supernatural. Remembering her grandmother's stories, how she'd mentioned a local historian, Mr. Rahman, who researched old town legends. Aisha dressed quickly, slipping out into the pre-dawn streets, the town of Gulshan still asleep under a blanket of fog. Streetlights buzzed faintly, casting long shadows that seemed to follow her, twisting into shapes like the murals on the walls. She found Mr. Rahman's house, a modest cottage on the outskirts, and knocked urgently. After what felt like forever, the door opened, revealing an elderly man with wire-rimmed glasses and a skeptical frown. "Do I know you?" he asked, but Aisha pushed past, blurting out her story, the door opening by itself, the whispers, the visions, the escape that wasn't really an escape. Mr. Rahman listened, his face paling, and led her to his study, walls lined with books and yellowed newspaper clippings about Blackwood Manor. "You're lucky to be alive," he said, pulling out a file. Elias Blackwood wasn't just mad. He tapped into something ancient, a demon or entity from folklore called the Devourer that feeds on fear and souls. The house is its vessel. Those who enter and leave, they become carriers, spreading its influence. Aisha's blood ran cold as he showed her photos, people who'd visited the manor years ago, their eyes haunted in later pictures, and reports of them leading groups back, only for all to vanish. "It's using you to bring more victims," he confirmed, echoing the whisper. "We have to sever the connection." He spoke of a ritual, using salt, herbs, and a chant from an old book to exorcise the hold. But as they prepared, gathering items on his table, the lights flickered, and a cold draft swept through, papers flying. The whisper returned, audible to both now. "Aisha, he can't help you." Mr. Rahman's eyes widened, and he hurried, drawing a circle of salt around them. But the house's reach extended, shadows lengthened, forming claws on the walls. Aisha felt a tug in her chest, like strings pulling her toward the door. "Fight it," Mr. Rahman urged, lighting candles that sputtered in the wind. He began chanting in a language she didn't know, words that made the air hum. For a moment the pull weakened, warmth returning to her limbs. But then a knock at the door, loud, insistent. "Don't answer," he warned, but Aisha's body moved against her will, stepping out of the circle, her hand reaching for the knob. Outside stood her best friend Sarah from the group chat, smiling unnaturally. "You invited us, Aisha. Let's go to the manor." But her eyes were wrong, black like the reflection. Aisha slammed the door, but Sarah's voice echoed inside. "You can't hide," the ritual faltered, candles extinguishing one by one. Mr. Rahman grabbed her arm. "We need to go to the house. Destroy the artifact in the basement. It's the only way." Aisha nodded, terror mixing with determination. They fled to his car, driving through the fog-shrouded roads back to Blackwood Manor as dawn broke, the sun a pale disk doing little to chase the chill. The house waited, its huge door ajar as if expecting them. They parked hidden in the trees, approaching cautiously, Mr. Raman carrying a bag of tools, holy water, a silver dagger, the old book. "Stay close," he said. But as they crossed the lawn, the ground softened, sinking like quicksand, roots wrapping around their ankles. Aisha yanked free, helping him, but whispers swarmed, a chorus now. "Bring more, feed us." They reached the porch, the door swinging wide, revealing the hallway dustier and more decayed than before. Inside, the air was thick, oppressive, and the portrait's eyes followed them openly, lips curling into smirks. Mr. Raman sprinkled salt, chanting, and the walls shuddered, plaster cracking. Down the hall to the staircase, but halfway, doors flew open, ghostly figures emerging. Translucent children, the Blackwood kids, their faces decayed, pleading, "Play with us." They reached out, cold touches burning like frostbite. Aisha swung the dagger, passing through them, but it disrupted their forms, making them wail and retreat. Into the library, the hidden panel already open, inviting. "It knows we're here," Mr. Raman whispered. Down the spiral stairs, the basement humming with energy machinery glowing faintly. The shattered mirror reformed, reflecting not them but Elias Blackwood, laughing silently. In the center, the artifact, a black stone on a pedestal, pulsing with dark light. "Destroy it," Mr. Raman said, handing her the dagger. But as she raised it, the stone spoke in her mind. "You'll doom them all, your friends are coming." Visions assaulted her, Sarah and the others arriving, the door swallowing them. She hesitated and shadows coalesced, attacking Mr. Raman, wrapping around his throat. He gasped, "Do it." Aisha struck, the dagger sinking into the stone, cracking it. A scream erupted, not human, shaking the foundations. The machinery exploded in sparks, ghosts howling as they faded. Mr. Raman collapsed, freed but weak. The house groaned, walls buckling. They ran up the stairs, through the hall, out the door as beams fell behind them. Outside, the manor trembled, then stilled, the door slamming shut one last time. Aisha helped Mr. Raman to the car, driving away as her friends' cars approached in the distance. She waved them off frantically, yelling warnings. They stopped, confused, but listened as she explained, the group turning back. "Safe." The whispers stopped, the cut on her cheek healing instantly. But that night in her dorm, a new creak, not the door but her closet, opening slowly, revealing a small mirror inside, reflecting the manor's door ajar once more. The whisper fainter but persistent. "You thought it was over, but the devourer lives on in you." Aisha stared, realizing the artifact's destruction had only scattered its essence, embedding deeper into her, waiting to rebuild. Her friends were safe for now, but the hunger grew inside, urging her to invite more, to return, to feed. She fought it, but how long could she resist? The town held more secrets, hidden in old graves and forgotten diaries, clues to truly end it. Tomorrow she'd search, but tonight, the shadows in her room lengthened, watching, waiting for her to slip. And in her dreams, the door opened again by itself, calling her home to the horror that never truly ends, pulling strings from the darkness, weaving a web that spanned beyond the house, into the hearts of all who dared to listen. The word hung in the air like a command from the shadows, echoing through Aisha's mind as she bolted upright in bed once more. Her room now a prison of flickering candlelight she'd set up to ward off the dark. But the flames danced erratically, casting grotesque shapes on the walls that looked too much like the twisted faces from Blackwood Manor's portraits. It had been only a day since the confrontation in the basement, since the artifact's destruction that was supposed to end it all. But the devourer, that ancient entity Elias Blackwood had unwittingly unleashed, wasn't gone. It had fragmented, shards of its essence burrowing into her like invisible thorns, growing stronger with every beat of her heart. Aisha's hands trembled as she reached for the journal she'd started keeping, scribbling down the dreams that plagued her. Visions of the house expanding, its walls stretching across the town, doors appearing in ordinary places. Her dorm closet, the college library shelves, even the bathroom mirror at Mr. Rahman's cottage, each one creaking open by itself, whispering invitations to unsuspecting souls. She knew now that destroying the stone had only decentralized the power. The devourer lived on, distributed like a virus, using her as the primary host to infect others. Her friends had heeded her warning that morning, turning away from the manor, but the pull inside her grew, a constant itch urging her to call them back, to text, to visit, to share the adventure. She resisted, locking her new phone in a drawer, but the whispers evolved, no longer just voices but sensations. Cold drafts on her skin, sudden dizziness, and worst of all, hallucinations of her loved ones trapped in the house, their faces pressed against foggy windows, mouths forming her name in silent pleas. Aisha decided she couldn't wait for tomorrow. The search for more clues had to start now, in the dead of night, when the entity's influence seemed strongest, as if the darkness fueled it. She dressed in layers against the chill, grabbed a backpack with salt, the silver dagger from Mr. Rahman, and a flashlight, then slipped out of her dorm. The campus quiet under a moonless sky, stars hidden by clouds that rolled in like smoke from a distant fire. The town of Gulshan felt different at night, streets empty, houses shuttered, but she sensed eyes watching from behind curtains, or perhaps that was the paranoia setting in. Her destination was the old graveyard on the hill overlooking Blackwood Manor, where the Blackwood family was supposedly buried, though legend said their graves were empty, bodies never found after the massacre. As she walked, the wind picked up, carrying faint piano notes again, the same melancholy tune from her earlier escape, making her steps falter. She shook it off, climbing the wrought iron gate of the cemetery, its spikes cold under her palms. Inside, tombstones loomed like silent sentinels, overgrown with ivy that rustled unnaturally as if breathing. She navigated by flashlight, beams sweeping over names weathered by time, until she found the Blackwood plot, a cluster of grand mausoleums, cracked and tilted, surrounded by a rusted fence. The largest one bore Elias Blackwood's name, etched deeply, with dates that ended over a century ago. Aisha pushed the door, expecting resistance, but it swung open easily, too easily, releasing a puff of musty air that smelled of earth and decay. Steps led down into a crypt, walls lined with stone coffins, each engraved with family members' names. Her light revealed cobwebs thick as curtains, and in the center a pedestal empty, where the artifact might have once rested before Elias moved it to the house. But as she explored, her foot kicked something, a loose stone in the floor. Prying it up, she found a hidden compartment containing a leather-bound diary, yellowed pages filled with Elias' handwriting. She sat on the cold floor, reading by flashlight, the words painting a horrifying picture. Elias hadn't discovered the artifact by accident. He'd sought it out, digging into ancient lore from forbidden books, believing it held the key to eternal life. Devourer, he wrote, was no demon but a primordial force, existing before time, feeding on human essence to manifest in the physical world. He'd bound it to the house using rituals involving blood sacrifices, first animals, then, in madness, his own family. The diary detailed the signs of possession: whispers, self-opening doors, mirrors showing alternate selves, and the compulsion to lure others. But the last entries were frantic. "It tricked me, it's not contained. It spreads through survivors." Aisha's heart sank. She was a survivor, a carrier. As she read, the crypt grew colder, her breath visible, and the coffins creaked, lids shifting slightly. She stuffed the diary in her backpack, standing quickly, but a voice echoed, not a whisper this time, but a deep rumble. "You seek knowledge, but knowledge binds you tighter." The door to the mausoleum slammed shut, sealing her in darkness save for her flashlight. Panic surged as she rushed to it, pushing with all her strength, but it held fast. Then from the coffin, scratching sounds, nails on wood and lids lifting slowly. Ghostly forms rose: Elia's, his wife, the children, translucent but solidifying, eyes glowing with hunger. "Join the family," Elia's specter intoned, hand extending, fingers elongating like shadows. Aisha backed away, dagger drawn, slashing through the air, but it passed harmlessly. The children giggled, circling her, their small hands tugging at her clothes, cold burning her skin. She remembered the salt, sprinkling it in a circle around herself, chanting the words Mr. Rahman had taught her. The ghosts recoiled, hissing, but the circle wouldn't hold forever. Cracks formed in the salt as the ground trembled. Desperate, she scanned for escape, spotting a grate in the wall, perhaps a drainage vent. She kicked it loose, crawling into a narrow tunnel, dirt crumbling around her, the ghost's wails following. The tunnel sloped down, then up, emerging in the graveyard grass. She ran, vaulting the fence, but the spirits pursued, floating through barriers, their forms flickering in the night. Back on the streets, she sprinted toward Mr. Rahman's cottage, pounding on his door until he opened, bleary-eyed. "They're here," she gasped, pushing inside. He saw the pursuing shadows and quickly drew protective symbols on the floor with chalk, murmuring incantations that made the air shimmer. The ghosts battered against the windows, faces distorted in rage but couldn't enter. "The diary," Aisha said, handing it over. Mr. Rahman pored over it, his face grim. "Elias mentions a counter-ritual, using the blood of a carrier to sever the links. But it's dangerous, it could kill you or free the devourer completely." No choice. The entity was growing, her hallucinations worsening. She saw doors in walls that weren't there, heard her friends' voices calling from them. They prepared through the night, gathering rare herbs from his garden, a vial of holy water and the dagger. At dawn, they returned to the graveyard, the safest place away from the house. In the mausoleum, now eerily quiet, they set up the ritual. A pentagram of salt, candles at each point, the diary open to the incantation. Aisha pricked her finger, dripping blood onto the pedestal. Mr. Rahman chanted, the words resonating, and pain exploded in her chest, like roots being torn out. Visions assaulted her, the devourer's true form, a swirling void of eyes and tentacles, spanning dimensions, using the house as an anchor but now seeking new ones through her. She screamed as fragments of souls fled her body, ghostly wisps escaping into the air, dissipating. The ground shook, the mausoleum cracking, and a roar filled the space, the devourer fighting back. Mr. Rahman faltered, a shadow lashing out, striking him down. Aisha grabbed the dagger, plunging it into the blood pool, completing the ritual. A blast of energy threw her back, the candles extinguishing, darkness enveloping. When she came to, the mausoleum was still, Mr. Rahman breathing shallowly beside her. The whispers were gone, the pull absent. She helped him out, the sun rising, warming her skin for the first time in days. Back in town, her friends met her, worried but unharmed, the compelled invitations forgotten like bad dreams. Days passed peacefully. Aisha returned to classes, the scar on her cheek fatting, the diary burned to ash. But one evening, walking home, she passed an old antique shop, its window displaying a cracked mirror. She stopped, drawn in, and inside the reflection, a faint outline of Blackwood Manor appeared, door ajar. The shopkeeper smiled, interested. It came from an old estate. Aisha backed away, but the whisper returned, subtle in her own voice this time. "Bring it home, share the story," she ran, realizing the devourer hadn't died. It had adapted, hiding in objects, in tailies, waiting for new carriers. The web extended further into artifacts scattered across the world, each one a portal. Her fight wasn't over. It was just beginning, hunting these relics, warning others, but always one step behind the entity that thrived on curiosity, on the human need to explore the unknown. That night in her dorm, a knock at the door. No one there when she opened it, but on the floor, a small key engraved with the Blackwood symbol. She picked it up, feeling the familiar cold, and in the distance, a door creaked open somewhere in the building by itself, inviting the next victim into the endless cycle of horror that bound souls across time and space, whispering promises of secrets too tempting to ignore. The key fit her closet lock perfectly, and as she turned it against her better judgment, the door swung wide, revealing not clothes but a foggy path leading back to the manor, the whispers swelling into a chorus. "Welcome back, Aisha. We've missed you." She slammed it shut, but the lock wouldn't hold, the door inching open again, forcing her to confront that the entity had woven itself into her life permanently, turning every shadow, every reflection, every quiet moment into a potential gateway. Weeks turned to months, Aisha becoming a recluse, researching online and in libraries, uncovering similar stories worldwide, haunted houses, self-opening doors, luring entities. She formed a network, anonymous contacts sharing experiences, piecing together that the devourer was part of a larger pantheon, ancient beings scattered by some cataclysm, seeking reunion through human conduits. Mr. Rahman recovered, joining her, their duo expanding to include skeptics turned believers after close calls. One lead took them to a distant city, an auction house selling Blackwood relics, a clock that ticked backward, stopping at 3:33, a painting where figures moved when unobserved. They infiltrated, bidding anonymously, but during the event the lights dimmed, whispers filling the room, bidders' eyes glazing over. Aisha smashed the clock on stage, salt flying, chants echoing, but the entity retaliated, possessing a guard who lunged at her with unnatural strength. They escaped with the painting, burning it in a ritual fire, but not before it revealed a map in its flames, locations of other artifacts, dotted across maps like stars in a constellated trap. Back home, exhaustion set in, but sleep brought dreams of unity, the devourer promising power if she surrendered. She resisted, but cracks formed, small lapses, like inviting a stranger to hear her story, only to see their eyes turn black later. The horror deepened when Sarah confessed feeling drawn to odd places, doors appearing in her dreams. Aisha realized the infection spread through proximity, her presence endangering those she loved. Isolation became her shield, moving to a remote cabin, warded with symbols, but even there the woods whispered, branches forming door shapes. One stormy night, lightning struck, power out, and her front door opened by itself, rain pouring in, a figure standing in the threshold, Elias Blackwood, solid as flesh, smiling. "You've done well spreading my legacy." He stepped inside, the cabin transforming, walls aging, portraits appearing. Aisha fought, dagger flashing, but he dissolved into smoke, reforming behind her. "You can't destroy what you carry." The battle raged, furniture flying, symbols burning away. She stabbed at the air, hitting something solid, a hidden artifact in the cabin's foundation. It shattered, the illusion breaking, Elias vanishing. But the damage was done. The entity learned, adapted, growing smarter. Aisha knew eternal vigilance was her fate, a lone guardian against an immortal foe, the story unending, each victory birthing new threats, the web tightening around the world, one curious soul at a time, until the day she might falter and the doors open wide for all. Yet hope flickered. An ancient text mentioned a final seal, hidden in the origins of the devourer, a journey to forgotten ruins. She set out, backpack heavy, the whispers mocking but unable to stop her, the horror evolving into a quest that spanned continents, delving into caves where echoes became voices, temples where stones pulsed like hearts, each step uncovering layers of mystery, building suspense as allies joined and fell, betrayals unfolded, and the entity revealed its grand design. not just feeding but reshaping reality into an eternal night of open doors and trapped souls. Through deserts where sandstorms formed ghostly faces, jungles where vines twisted into handles, mountains with caves that breathed, Aisha pressed on, the dagger her constant companion, the diary her guide, the fear her fuel, knowing that to listen was to risk everything, but to ignore was to doom all. The thought echoed in Aisha's mind like a final verdict as she stood at the entrance of the forgotten ruins in the heart of the Peruvian Andes, the ancient stones weathered by centuries of wind and rain, their surfaces etched with runes that matched those from Elia's Blackwood's diary, symbols that pulsed faintly under her flashlight's beam as if alive, breathing in sync with her ragged breaths after the grueling climb through mist-shrouded paths where every step felt like defying gravity itself. She had come so far, leaving behind the familiar streets of Gulshan for this remote corner of the world, driven by the clues unearthed in her relentless research, clues that pointed to this place as the origin of the Devourer, a site where ancient shamans had first summoned and then attempted to seal the entity away, only to fail and scatter its essence across the globe, embedding it in artifacts like the one Elias had found. The air here was thin, cold, laced with the scent of damp earth and something metallic, like blood long dried. And as Aisha stepped inside the crumbling temple, her backpack heavy with wards, the silver dagger, and newly acquired relics from her network of allies, a crystal from an Egyptian tomb that supposedly repelled shadows, a talisman from Japanese folklore said to bind spirits, she felt the weight of the world's fate on her shoulders, knowing that if she faltered here, the Devourer would consume not just her, but spread unchecked, opening doors in every home, every mind, turning reality into an endless labyrinth of horror. The whispers had grown subtler during her journey, masquerading as her own thoughts, urging doubt, but she pushed them aside, focusing on the map burned into her memory from the painting's flames, leading her through booby-trapped corridors where floors gave way to pits lined with spikes, walls shifted like living puzzles, and illusions manifested, visions of her grandmother, alive and calling, or Sarah, trapped in vines that looked suspiciously like the house's roots. She navigated with care, salt trails marking her path, the dagger slicing through ethereal webs that clung like regrets. Deeper in, the temple opened into a vast chamber, domed ceiling cracked to reveal stars that seemed to watch, and in the center, a massive altar surrounded by murals depicting the Devourer's birth, a void splitting the sky, tendrils devouring villages, shamans in feathered headdresses chanting seals that failed. On the altar lay the final seal, an obsidian orb cracked but intact, humming with suppressed power. Aisha approached, heart pounding, but the ground trembled, and from the shadows, figures emerged. Not ghosts this time, but guardians, mummified warriors reanimated by the entity's influence, their eyes glowing red, weapons rusted but sharp. They lunged, silent except for the rasp of decayed lungs, and Aisha fought, dagger clashing against spears, salt burning their flesh like acid, the crystal amplifying her chance to disrupt their forms. One grabbed her arm, strength unnatural, whispering in an ancient tongue that translated in her mind. "You are the key, release us." She twisted free, stabbing its heart, watching it crumble to dust, but more rose, endless waves testing her endurance. Hours blurred into a frenzy of combat, her body aching, cuts bleeding, but she reached the orb, hands trembling as she recited the count ritual from the diary, adapted with insights from her allies. A blend of languages, blood dripped from her palm mixing with the obsidian surface. The orb glowed, cracks widening, and the Devourer roared, manifesting as a swirling vortex above, eyes multiplying, tentacles lashing out, shattering stone. Aisha held firm, the talisman shielding her from direct strikes, but the visions intensified, her life flashing, regrets amplified. The bet that started it all, friends endangered Mr. Raman's near death. The entity fed on them, growing stronger, but she channeled the pain, screaming the final words. The orb shattered, a shockwave blasting outward, guardians dissolving, the vortex imploding with a deafening wail. Silence fell, heavy and absolute, the whispers gone, the pull vanished. Aisha collapsed, exhausted but triumphant, the ruins stabilizing around her. She emerged at dawn, the Andes bathed in golden light, feeling truly free for the first time, the scar on her cheek gone, no cold drafts, no self-opening doors. Back in civilization, she reunited with her network, sharing the victory, artifacts destroyed, the Pantheon weakened. Life normalized, college, friends, laughter without shadows. But months later, in a quiet cafe, a stranger approached, handing her an envelope from an admirer. Inside, a photo of Blackwood Manor, rebuilt somehow, door ajar, and a note. The seal was temporary, siblings awaken. Horror dawned, the devourer was one of many, its pantheon, brothers and sisters stirring, drawn by her actions. Whispers returned, different voices, promising new terrors. Aisha realized her quest had only closed one chapter, opening others, entities like the Weaver spinning fates, the Echo repeating traumas, the Voidwalker erasing existences. She gathered her allies again, now a team, Mr. Raman, Sarah, who joined after her own brushes, a hacker from her network tracing digital hauntings, a priest versed in exorcisms. Their first lead, reports from Europe of a castle where mirrors swallowed people, doors leading to nowhere. They traveled, plane rides tense with anticipation, arriving at the Bavarian fortress under stormy skies, its towers piercing clouds like accusations. Inside, the air hummed with energy similar yet distinct, no whispers but echoes, every sound repeating, amplifying fears. They explored halls lined with mirrors, reflections showing alternate lives, Aisha as a child, untouched by horror, Sarah successful but alone. The Weaver manifested as spider-like shadows, webs trapping them in illusions. They fought with new tools, mirrored shields to reflect attacks, sonic devices to disrupt echoes. Deep in the dungeons, the core artifact, a loom weaving threads of fate. Aisha cut the threads with the dagger, now enchanted, but the Weaver bit back, altering realities momentarily. Mr. Raman aged rapidly, reversed only by quick chance. Victory came, but at cost. The hacker lost, pulled into a web, his screams echoing eternally. Grief fueled them onward, next to Asia for the Echo, in a Japanese shrine where past traumas replayed endlessly, forcing relivings of Blackwood nights. They broke the cycle with silence rituals, earplugs and meditation, shattering an echoing bell. Then Africa, the Voidwalker and Savannah ruins, erasing memories' existence. Aisha forgot her name temporarily, allies reminding her through anchored talismans. Each battle lengthened the war, entities adapting, allying against her. Years passed in this odyssey, Aisha aging, hair graying, but resolve stealing. Allies grew, shamans, scientists, survivors, forming a global resistance. Climax neared in Antarctica, frozen waste hiding the Pantheon's nexus, a crystalline structure pulsing with combined essences. Trekking through blizzards, visions assaulting, lost loves, failures magnified. Inside, all entities converged, a hydra of horrors. The team sacrificed, Sarah sealing a portal, Mr. Raman banishing one with his life. Aisha alone faced the core, dagger raised, chanting the ultimate seal from compiled lore. Power surged, ice cracking, entities wailing as they compressed into nothingness. She emerged, the only survivor, world saved but scarred. Returning home, Gulshan peaceful, Blackwood Manor a ruin again. She lived quietly, writing warnings in books, but one night, a door in her wall opened by itself, revealing a new void. A whisper, unfamiliar. The cycle renews. Aisha smiled wearily, dagger in hand, ready for the next chapter, knowing horror never truly ends, only pauses, waiting in the shadows for the curious to listen once more, to step through, to feed the eternal hunger that spans universes, binding fates in an unbreakable chain of suspense and mystery that draws ever more into its grasp, ensuring the story continues, vast and unending, through every creak, every shadow, every unspoken fear that lingers in the quiet moments of life. The quiet moments of life had become Aisha's most treacherous enemies, those fleeting pauses between breaths where the world seemed still. But in reality, the shadows stirred, whispering secrets from realms beyond, reminding her that the victory in Antarctica was not an end but a mere intermission in an eternal symphony of horror that played across the fabric of existence itself. Each note a creak of a door opening unbidden. Each pause an invitation for the next entity to slither through the cracks she thought she'd sealed forever. Years had trickled by since that frozen climax, Aisha now in her 40s, her once youthful face lined with the etchings of battles won and lost, her brown eyes sharper, more vigilant, carrying the weight of countless nights spent staring into mirrors, waiting for reflections to betray her, or listening to the wind for voices that weren't there. She had settled in a small coastal town far from Gulshan, a place called Harbor's Edge, where the ocean's roar drowned out lesser sounds, and the salt air seemed to cleanse the soul. But even here, the Devourer's siblings, or perhaps its echoes, found ways to infiltrate, manifesting in subtle ways. A fisherman's tale of doors appearing on boats at sea, leading to drowned realms. A child's drawing of a house with eyes, too similar to Blackwood Manor. Or the sudden disappearance of tourists who wandered too close to the cliffs, their screams echoing faintly in the waves. Aisha had built a life of quiet guardianship, running a bookstore filled with obscure tomes on folklore and the occult, using it as a front to gather information from travelers and locals alike. Her network now a sprawling web of contacts across continents. Historians like Mr. Rahman's successor, a young woman named Lena who had inherited his notes and his resolve. Tech-savvy investigators who monitored digital anomalies, like glitches in videos showing doors materializing in pixels. And even former victims, scarred but strong, forming support groups that doubled as reconnaissance teams. But the quiet moments betrayed her one stormy evening, as she sat by her window watching the rain lash against the glass, a cup of tea cooling in her hands, when the door to her shop below creaked open by itself, the bell tinkling merrily as if welcoming an old friend, though the hour was late and the sign read closed. Aisha's heart skipped. The dagger, now an heirloom of sorts, its blade etched with runes from every battle, always at her side, gripped tightly as she descended the stairs, the wooden steps groaning under her weight like reluctant confessions. The shop was dim, lit only by the glow of a street lamp filtering through the window, casting long shadows over shelves crammed with books that whispered their own secrets when no one was looking. At the counter stood a figure, cloaked in a dripping raincoat, face hidden in shadow, but when they turned, Aisha gasped. It was Sarah, her old friend, unchanged by time, smiling that same warm smile from college days, but her eyes. Oh, her eyes were wrong, swirling with voids that pulled at the soul. "Aisha," Sarah said, voice echoing slightly like it came from underwater, "I've missed you. The doors are opening again, wider this time. Come see what we've built." Aisha backed away, dagger raised, but the figure dissolved into mist, reforming as Elias Blackwood, then her grandmother, then strangers with pleading faces, each whispering, "The cycle renews. Join the chorus." The shop transformed around her, books flying off shelves, pages fluttering like trapped birds, forming words in the air. The harbinger awakens. She slashed through the illusions, the dagger disrupting the energy, and the vision shattered, leaving her alone with scattered books and a pounding heart. But the message lingered, a clue she couldn't ignore. The Harbinger, a name from the ancient texts, one of the Pantheon's elders, a being that heralded the convergence of all entities, turning isolated horrors into a unified apocalypse where every door in the world would open simultaneously, spilling forth nightmares into reality. Aisha knew she had to act, contacting Lena first, who arrived days later with fresh research. Sightings worldwide of anomalous doors in subway tunnels in New York, leading to abandoned eras, in Amazon rainforests, opening to primordial jungles alive with extinct beasts, in Tokyo high-rises, connecting to silent, empty duplicates of the city. The network mobilized, Aisha at the helm, traveling to the first hotspot, a derelict mine in Australia where miners reported doors in rock faces, whispering promises of gold but delivering madness. Descending into the depths, flashlight beams cutting through dust-choked air, they encountered the first manifestations, echoes of the Devourer, twisted into new forms by the Harbinger's influenced tentacled shadows that wrapped around legs, pulling victims into walls that rippled like water. Aisha's team fought with upgraded arsenal, sonic emitters to shatter illusions, wards infused with Antarctic crystal shards, and her dagger, now humming with accumulated power. They sealed the mine's core, a pulsating vein of ore that served as a conduit, but not without loss. A new ally, a geologist named Tom, vanished through a door, his screams fading into echoes that haunted their dreams.